The death of nature and the war on Ukraine are part of the same thing, and I would add the insect apocalypse as well. Our planet is just screaming at us, and COVID is part of that communication. And frankly, I think that Russia's brutal war on Ukraine is part of this, is wrapped up in this whole thing. And to start with the insects, I've talked before on this program about that day back, the first time it happened, I think was probably back around 2006, 2007, 2008. I was doing this show, and a trucker called in, and he was a long-haul trucker who went back and forth between the East and West Coasts multiple times every year, or the Southeast, as I recall, in the Northwest. And he said, it used to be I had to stop and scrape the bugs off my windshield every few hours. Now I've been traveling 3 days and haven't had once to clean the bugs off my windshield. There's something spooky going on here, is what he said. And the phone lines lit up. I mean, people from Maine to California, from Florida to Washington State, sharing their stories about the death of the insects, this insect apocalypse. We're seeing it, we used to live on the Willamette River in Portland. We now live on the Columbia River. The air, around rivers is typically filled with bugs and swallows, these little insect-eating birds. And I'm not seeing either one of those things anymore. Pretty much the only bugs I see anymore are spiders, and they're getting smaller and smaller as are their webs. And, this is concerning. But that's only part of the story. The insect apocalypse and the pandemic are both functions of how we're destroying wild areas around the world. We are invading spaces where humans didn't used to be. We're burning down and tearing up rainforests and jungles and wild forests and savannas. And as a consequence of that, not only are we destroying insect habitats, but we are also exploring places where typically humans haven't gone. Apparently, for example, the COVID virus came out of bats living in caves about 150 miles outside of Wuhan, in a region that, humans had just always in the past ignored those caves. But hey, a new delicacy. Let's catch some of these bats and bring them into the wet market in Wuhan, and suddenly, it's spreading, the disease is spreading around inside the town. This is, people getting into wild areas. So where is all this coming from? Well, it's a function of our population. Our population, for most of the 200 roughly 1,000 years of modern human history, we lived in small bands and in relatively small cities. And, our population was less than 1 billion right up until 1800. We hit our first 1 billion people on the planet in the year 1800. The year that Thomas Jefferson was inaugurated as president, or won the election to be president of the United States. The second billion only took 130 years, 1930. Our third billion only took 30 years, 1960. The fourth billion, 14 years, 74. Fifth billion, 13 years, 1987. And today we're standing on the verge of 8 billion people. And what's driving this is the fact that we are using as an energy source, both to grow and transport our food, among other things, sunlight that was captured by plants 250 million years ago. And that sunlight and that plant mass, the plants catch the sunlight, they use it to power a chemical reaction that combines the moisture, oxygen, and hydrogen from the soil, from the air, H2O, hydrogen and oxygen from the atmosphere, along with carbon from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and forms plant matter. And then that gets sunk into the earth, and it becomes coal and oil and natural gas. And we pull those things out. When we burn them, we're reliberating that sunlight, that 200 million year old sunlight. It's 200 million year old sunlight that's powering cars going down the road right now that you're looking at. Well, why not power them with modern sunlight? I mean, we now have that ability. And it's really important that we take that, because the countries that are still pumping this ancient sunlight, like Russia and Saudi Arabia, are not the kind of countries that we want to see the world become like. And thus the war in Ukraine. Once again, if Putin wasn't selling all this ancient sunlight, all this fossil fuel, he would not have the ability to have the military to go after Ukraine like he is. So what I'm saying is all these things are one thing. And the single most consequential thing that we can do right now in addition to social changes that downregulate population, like empowering women around the world, one of the most important things we can do is decarbonize our economy. And we need to do it right away. And frankly, I think the situation in Ukraine is a much needed wake-up call about the importance of this.